Neil, could you start by telling us a bit about Social Care Future and what it is?
Yeah, sure. So Social Care Future is a growing movement with people that draw on social care themselves at its heart. That includes self-advocates or the people with learning disabilities. Been around since 2018, and we have a vision about the future. We think social care and the support that should be available to people should be much, much better than it currently is. We think everyone wants to live in the place they call home and be with the people and things that they love and do the things that they matter to them, and that they want to be part of communities where people look out for each other. So that's what we're interested in trying to bring about.
Yeah, could you talk a little about the research you have done recently with Equally Ours?
Yeah, so one of the things that we think gets in the way of achieving our vision is the way that the public talks about and thinks about social care, and also the way the media does or politicians. And so we decided we needed to do something to try and break that down. So for example, if you read most newspaper stories or listen to how a lot of people think, they say social care is there for vulnerable people who can't look after themselves. And that's completely at odds with our ideas and our thinking. You know, we think it should be there to support people to lead their best lives and to choose to live who they want to live with, to love who they want to love, to do the things that they want to do, and so on. So we need to change all of that. So the research that we've been doing recently has been about how do we do that well? How can we tell a story that changes the way people think about social care, but also causes them to want more change, for them to want the vision that we're putting in front of them. So we finished that research now. We're going to be bringing it out very soon. And we're sort of keen to work with as many people as possible to help them to use it. And that includes self-advocates. So we've been having some early conversations with Learning Disability England about how we might do that.
Why do we need to change the way we talk about social care?
As I said, one of the chief problems is that when people think of social care now, the ideas that come into their minds are really not helpful to us at all. And this is it's one of the issues. If we say any word to one another, so if I say to you now, Gary, cafe, without controlling it, you've got a whole load of ideas in your head, and you couldn't do anything about that, but you've probably thought of a load of different things. And what we found is when we said the word social care to people, the ideas that came into their heads were completely at odds with the ones that we want them to think about. So as I said, they thought about vulnerable people who can't look after themselves, or they just thought it cost a lot of money, or that it's broken, and so on. So we wanted to change that, and that's what we've been working on. It's about not just what we say to people, it's how we change the story that's in their heads when they think about social care. So that's what we've been trying to do.
What are the most important messages and findings from the research?
Well, I think the first one is that it's shown us that we actually can change how people think and feel about social care. We can put a positive message across. So for example, after the research, so we had about 3,000 people looked at our messages, and they answered a load of questions before and a load of questions afterwards. And having looked at our messages at the end, only half of them thought about vulnerability. So that had gone really down. So they stopped thinking that social care was about vulnerable people who can't look after themselves. And they were more likely to think it's there to help people lead their best lives. And they were more likely to want the government to spend more on it. So it works. That's the first message. Other things, though, that are really, really important are making sure when we talk about social care, we make sure that the people that use social care, that draw on social care, are, if you like, the heroes in their own story. So very often, if you read about social care, it won't talk about the people that use it. It will talk about a provider or the sector or a worker, but it never really talks about the people that are drawing on it to live their lives. So that's the first sort of thing. We start our message with people who draw on social care to live their lives. That was number one. Two is this basic rule: sell the brownie, not the recipe. Or this is an American kind of phrase. If we were in Britain, it might be sell the Victoria sponge cake, not the recipe. But the point is, I remember a speech you gave a few years ago at the Learning Disability England conference, and you were using the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech and adapting it about the lives of people with learning disabilities. That's what that means. You were putting forward this really powerful vision of how life could be, not just what's wrong. And as somebody said, Martin Luther King never gave a I have a problem speech, did he? He gave a I have a dream speech. So we have to put forward a sense of how good things could be if we made that change. We have to make sure that we're making people feel the right way about these things, because if we just go for pity, so when we talk about social care as being for vulnerable people that can't look after themselves, we might get people to feel pity towards people with disabilities or older people, but actually we don't want to do that. We want them to think actually that, you know, disabled people, people with disabilities are being treated unequally here and should have a good life, and it's not fair that this is happening. So we need to be careful the way we talk about that. And one of the other key rules is to make sure we don't do what's called othering. So we found when we did this research that whenever we talk to people about social care, the public, they always thought it was for somebody else. It's for older people and disabled people over there. And our message, the thing we've come up with, gets past that. So at the end of it, people were like, well, no, this is much more relevant to my family, to me, to my community, to my lives. And they stopped thinking in that way. So they saw it as much more part of everybody's lives. So that was the other thing we wanted to do. So that's a very quick run through some of the key things that have come out of it.
What are the steps for Social Care Future moving forward?
Okay, well, we want to do a lot of work to help people to use this research and these messages. And as I've said, we will be keen to work with Learning Disability England and self-advocates on that. Our next gathering, our next get-together, be online, sadly. Hopefully we'll be able to get back together in person soon, but that's on the 27th of May. And absolutely everyone is welcome. Even if you can't afford to pay, you're welcome to come along, because we think these are better conversations where everybody is there. We're running an inquiry that's been led by people that draw on social care themselves to really come up with solutions about how do we move forward. So that's underway. And our big idea, the thing we really want to do, is to build a big movement for change, a big movement that invites everybody in that wants to see this change happen. So we've got some people working with us to help us think, how do we do that at the moment? And again, that's something we very much want people with learning disabilities, their families and others to be part of.
Thank you, Neil, for that, and hope it all comes together.
Thanks, Gary.